government alone is unlikely to ever find a solution to the issues that we're dealing with. And therefore, we need expertise that you have as the experts on matters of governance, experts on matters of analyzing the prerequisite for good governance, to be able to support, advise, be a sounding board to government when it comes to these issues.
We are privileged as an audit office in the sense that some of the issues that you may be hearing spoken about, we are privileged to have an opportunity to have access to government all the time. We are privileged to have the ability to assess the state of governance in governance all the time. And hence, this statement here is quite important. Defining what we do. And I like the last part of it, which says that we also play a part in building public confidence. But we do that through the work that we do as a Supreme Audit institution, as through the work that we do as auditors that have got a primary and sole responsibility to audit government. But we have put ourselves in a situation where we have said we cannot just simply audit and report and walk away. We have said to ourselves, we need to audit and, as part of our reporting, engage with those that are charged with governance, and engage with those that can support government, engage with those that can make a difference to the way in which we strengthen the democracy of South Africa. And thereby making a point clear that in addition to the constitutional expectation for us to contribute towards a stronger democracy, we cannot do it alone. It's a collective responsibility. The primary desire of being part of validating the credibility of that clean governance, and hence the idea of what is called a clean audit. Because clean governance is the responsibility of government, but what we call clean audit is what we then use as part of the, can I call it a rating that we give to government to demonstrate how far they are in achieving clean governance. In terms of what is the status, on the left-hand side, it's local government. On the right-hand side, it's national and provincial government. This is the color coding you may or may not be familiar with. In terms of the status of clean audits, what is labeled in green is what is the ideal, which is basically clean audits. You notice that when it comes to local government, very few entities have reached that mark. Many of them, much more in fact, have reached that mark when it comes to provincial and national government. 22% are there. But there's a, I'm going to use these colors because this is what we're now familiar with. Yellow section. This is the section where the departments or entities or municipalities are demonstrating the ability to do the right thing, but are struggling to sustain this good practice throughout the year. Now, there's an argument in the debate that is emerging with these stakeholders that says, but AG, why are you not recognizing the fact that our ultimate results are fairly presented? We're saying, yes, we're recognizing that because we're not giving you a qualified report. But we struggle to give you a clean audit status because during the part of the year when we're not there, there are no systems that are sustainable enough to produce credible information. It's only at the time when you're under audit scrutiny that this activity becomes elevated to the point, in fact, where the relationship and the tensions are heightened unnecessarily in our view. Okay. And it's for that reason that we say, therefore, the clean audit status has got to be a status where all the time of the year you've got systems that are so robust, systems that are so effective that you can draw any report and it will be deemed to be credible because checks and balances, debits and credits are checked, capturing of the batches are done properly, reconciliations at the end of the month are done, and I know I'm talking very, very elementary stuff, okay? But this is what we talk about as what is not happening. And therefore, those departments that have got the clean audit status are those that have respected those disciplines. But not only for financial information, but also for service delivery information. Because for government, we appreciate the private sector, the priority is to maximize the bottom line. But for government, priority is to maximize service delivery. Those are the two parallels between government and the private sector. Maximize returns in the bottom line, government maximize the quality of life of citizens or service delivery. So we look and audit service delivery reports quite extensively. And when we look at those reports, we subject them to the same level of scrutiny as that we subject the financial reports to. And when those reports are not giving us the right evidence, the right procedures, the right practices, we also rate them and say they're not good enough to inspire confidence in the public because we found a lot of errors, we found a lot of deviations to the norms. And therefore, what's contained in your annual report, to a large extent, is not necessarily a true picture of what actually happened because we could not find evidence thereof. And as an audit office, our role is to make sure that every utterance that is made to citizens is supported by credible information. And we'll also look at the third issue, which is the extent to which compliance to the rule of law is respected by all government departments and entities. Because Parliament spends time promulgating laws, financial management regulations, treasuries prepare all those regulations. They are meant to be respected, they're meant to be complied with. And we look at those issues. So our approach and our coverage is that broad, three-dimensional. The beauty of this is that it's not only happening in government departments, it's happening in every entity of government, whether we audit it ourselves or whether it's audited by the private firms. That coverage is part of the directive that we issue every year, and the audit firms follow that directive in auditing the ESCOMs of this world, the telecoms of this world, and all the other major stations. What are the areas that we're most concerned about? One that we're most concerned about is this one here. It talks to the status of the respect for the rule of law. When it comes to local government, now put on the other side of the picture, only 4% have demonstrated full compliance with the rule of law. But when it comes to national and provincial government, only a quarter comply with the rules that are expected to comply with. And if you want to ask me what is the area that should be given more prominence in terms of priority, in terms of speedy action, I think it's just the culture of respecting the rule of law. Because South Africa have got one of the best rules, one of the best legislations, but adherence thereto is one of the issues that we are struggling with. And this graph here, insofar as the sphere and the categories that we're looking at, demonstrate that, exactly that issue. Now, if you ask which aspect of the rule of law is most affected by these deviations, I've just sliced the top three that have got the highest proportions. You notice that when it comes to the national and provincial entities, on average about 50% instances where the top three, can I call it culprits when it comes to deviation from law, is prevalent in those entities. And one of the biggest one is the quality of financial statements and financial records, where we say close to 60% of departments are struggling to master the art of getting this right of debits and credits. Okay. But that's where the biggest problem is. But in local government, that's happening to close to 90% of municipalities and entities. So it's quite a high ratio at the local government level. You can understand because that's where the skills are in short supply. The other area that is the biggest culprit relates to, and I'm going to combine these two, is procurement that tends to result in what is called irregular expenditure. Okay. And now we put this thing, we call it UIF, which is unauthorized, irregular, and fruitless expenditure, but the biggest proportion of these numbers is normally irregular expenditure, which is linked to the top point, which is management of procurement and contracts. Now, this is all about deviating from the rule that says when we procure, follow certain procedures. Why, 80% of municipalities deviate from what is known is something that we need to find a solution to and an answer to. It's happening to the extent of 45% in provincial and national government. The management of procurement and contracts is also important because once things have been procured, some decisions have got to be managed throughout the deal with the service provider. Sometimes you find that that process is not properly managed. Public works is the biggest department that is exposed to that kind of vulnerability. So you may be hearing, for instance, a few instances where certain projects are given more emphasis and prominence. But look at public works in its totality. Don't look at one project. Right? Because what is reflected in that one project is a reflection of multiple challenges that public works has in managing these contracts that they are doing on behalf of government departments. So those are the top three issues that affecting the compliance with the rule of law. And we're highlighting this so that we don't come across as generalizing too much. And we're also putting these ratios so that we're not saying every government department is a culprit. It's only a proportion in terms of these ratios that is affected. But the proportions are much more higher in local government than it is in provincial and national government. So we need to understand that context. When it comes to service delivery, we are delighted about the fact that national and provincial entities are perfecting this requirement to the tune of 60% of the departments. It's only 40% of the departments that are struggling with this requirement. But that 40%, what we're going to do next time is to also put this not only in number of departments, but in terms of the spend that the departments involved with. Because if you look at that 40%, it's mainly affecting departments that are major spenders. And if you have to convert it in terms of spending, that graph would actually be the other way around. Because this is where the educations are sitting, this is where the health is sitting, and all the major departments, those 5 sectors that I've highlighted, most of them are sitting at 40%. What this has been able to assist us to do was to be able to now report meaningfully and get the government to report meaningfully about the extent to which service delivery promises have been honored. If we talk about solutions, we've identified 3 interventions that ought to be made. We've looked at this thing, we've analyzed it to the point of redundancy.
Whether you're talking provincial government, whether you're talking national government, whether you're talking local government. The skilling of our government is an issue that we need to pay a lot of attention to. Whether it's filling vacancies, whether it's putting people that understand what they're doing, we need to deal with that issue very, very decisively. Otherwise, we're going to struggle, really struggle to sustain some of the solutions that we are advocating. The rest can then follow in terms of having consequences. But you can't have consequences for a situation that is hopeless. You need to first purify the environment by scaling it appropriately, having the right systems, having the right tools to do government business. Then you can have better grounds to say, let's have consequences when people deviate from what is known. Yes, the rules are there. Yes, the rules are known. But supplement those rules by getting people that understand why the rules are important. Okay. The other issue is someone is going to drive that. And that's why the last point is important for us. The political leaders have got a primary responsibility to make this happen. And we find that there's a very slow response. This ratio, we didn't put the ratios here. I mean, in local government, this goes to, depending on the provinces. On average, 75% of the provinces or local municipalities, they've got political leaders, councillors, etc., mayors that do not take this to heart. We don't know whether it's because they don't understand what it means, whether it does not mean much to them, or whether it's opportunistic for them to have a chaotic situation. There are those extremes. We need to find a happy medium or classify those reasons quite clearly. But bottom line is, unless councillors, unless politicians make this their business to employ the right people, government stability, government institutions are unlikely to deliver the expected results when it comes to governance, when it comes to service delivery. So it's not something that is mean, it's not something that is insignificant. It's actually at the root and at the heart of what we need to solve. And my view is that an institution like yours, where you are a business school, we need to find innovative ways to say, how can we persuade government and its leaders to take these things seriously? How can we support government to make this project a reality? Because if it doesn't get sorted out, we are all going to go down the tubes. It's not only government that's going to suffer. All of us are going to suffer. And I guess most of you are here because we have businesses. Your businesses are going to suffer as well. You know, internal controls is a very complicated issue, but we've simplified internal controls to this level. We're saying internal controls can only function if the leaders in government do something to inspire and create an environment where internal controls are respected. We say internal controls are about getting the records, whether it's financial records or it's performance records, absolutely accurate. We say internal controls are about getting the systems and institutions of governance to function optimally, whether it's internal audit, whether it's audit committees, whether it's committees of oversight. And this dashboard is giving us an indication of how far we are with in perfecting those systems of internal control. Once again, we've made a comparison between PFMA and NFMA, which is national and provincial government and local government. You notice that when it comes to national and provincial government, at least
half of the ministries and ministers in particular have laid the right foundation to have the right internal controls. Whereas when it comes to local government, the mayors and councillors have not increased their level of perfection of the system of internal controls. Either by showing that we are interested in this thing, this is what counts in this institution, we accept nothing less but excellence in this institution. That's all we need. And these are the services we provided, these are the people we employed, etc., etc. So these are the issues that we talk about when we talk about leadership. But what is at most is the middle part. Credibility of information that gets used for government decisions. We need to get that right. Because every institution that looks at government is looking at that.